appropriate.
Senator Vidak. Any other questions by any of the expert witnesses on either side by members before I ask the author to close? Senator Jackson and Senator
Yes,
Snow.
for the experts, and I think we're all somewhat feeling what Senator Hertzberg is articulating. Have there been any efforts to reconfigure these stop signs? Has there been any effort to bring in an independent outside construction or traffic safety entity to construct perhaps greater effectiveness, greater signage, so people know? I don't agree that people are you know, if there's no ticket, that they feel free to cross these areas driving so fast. I suspect most people don't know, because I don't think people want to hit or play dodgeball with pedestrians and little kids who are crossing the street. It seems to me that these locations are, if it truly safety is the fundamental reason, are not being placed well, and I would like assurances that either you are doing that, this has been done, or that you will do that, rather than pass this bill, which is going to basically take away your right to do any kind of management of this area. Can there be some assurances of that?
I can assure you we'll revisit the issue. We'll look at these stop signs. We'll do everything we can to make sure they're in the right places. Absolutely.
But we doesn't mean necessarily you. I think you need to have a professional organization come in and do that. And if I can get those assurances, I will not vote for this bill. Can you give those assurances?
On behalf of the agency, I can assure you that'll happen.
Thank you.
Park Rangers, again, we look for every tool that we can get to that help keep our park visitors
Absolutely.
safe. That is, again, we just don't do traffic control.
Absolutely. I totally understand.
So yeah, we're looking for that. Yes. Anything to help us.
Senator Stone.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. I agree with Senator Allen's idea of speed undulations. We use them in the city of Temecula successfully, and
In terms.
yes, and it's a more politically correct term. And they, by the way, they don't stretch all the way across the road. They're in segments. So if you have a stroller, you can maneuver yourself with those, and they've been shown to be very successful in slowing traffic down with very limited public liability. I also agree with my distinguished colleague from Los Angeles, Senator Hertzberg, that I also do not like these cameras. We actually had a referendum in the city of Murrieta to get rid of them, and I think it's an appalling statistic. 25,000 citations and 7 stop signs, where 50% of them are dismissed. You know, I think that, listen, public safety is the most important thing. I don't think anybody that was bypassing traffic wanted to put any pedestrians in danger. We want to protect those pedestrians, but the cameras aren't working right now. So the public's at risk right now. So how do we fix the problem? I think the way we fix the problem is we get some of our traffic engineers, maybe a Caltrans, to get involved and strategically make sure that these stop signs are at the right place with the solar red lights that are flashing, because they're in areas where people are going through these parks, and what are they doing? They're not really looking at the road. Hopefully they're not texting while they're driving, but they're looking at all these beautiful sights. And so you need something to grasp their attention so that they do stop and slow down. And these lights, by the way, are solar energized. They're not very expensive. And so it just looks like this is just a revenue generator, and it really disgusts people when they get these tickets in the mail. And if you wanted to go back to your state parks after they get one of these tickets, they have a bad taste in their mouth. So I would love to, also work with you and try to make these better. But I also don't like the fact that this is the only place in the entire state that has these stop sign cameras still in operation, and it still looks like they're being abused. So. With that, I'm going to support the motion.
Senator Huff, you have the last word.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's been a robust discussion, and I appreciate it. We've had a lot of points of input here and well-reasoned questions and comments. Many of us come from local government, and we're aware that there are standards you follow when you place stop signs and other traffic calming measures. It's usually to solve a problem. And while the testimony from MRCA said they do not place these arbitrarily, they've never demonstrated accident record prior to, or accident record during, or accident record now. So what public safety issue are they solving? What we have seen, even through the videos, are, as stated, people blowing through these stop signs because they are capriciously stated. They're placed in places that make no sense. They're places that the average person thinks, was this left over from a Hollywood movie? As they go by. And those that know that there's no enforcement, that it doesn't go on their record, that there aren't points, they continue to violate, creating an even more unsafe situation. But even in that situation, where's the accident record? When this went through Transportation Committee, it got only one opposed vote. Those are the ones that actually deal with the vehicle code, not a Natural Resources Committee. We're here today because we love our parks, we want to fund our parks, we want to enjoy our parks. Getting home after a great outing is not, finding a ticket in the mail is not a way to enjoy the parks. In fact, we've had weddings up here, we've had funerals up here, and we've had serial people in those ceremonies getting tickets that totally rained on the purpose of what they were there and detracted from the moment. Can we solve the problem of slowing traffic? Absolutely. There is a way to do it. Stop signs is not that. As I stated before, alleged counsel has said they do not have the statutory authority to do this, to place it, in spite of what the attorney said there. I could drag my attorney out and counter your comment as far as published opinion, because the opinion, I'm not an attorney, but the attorneys that are familiar with this, Senator Jackson, well, you know, we can argue that another day about how that appears. And I know you all have another hearing to do here, but let me just say that again, the Traffic Commission, the Traffic Committee, which deals with the issue, understood everything we're trying to say here. This needs to be dealt with differently. Certainly speed humps of these things would slow it down. Putting narrowing the road in many cases, the comment was made that these were access trails, emergency trails, but they are now connected to the public system, and therefore we have a uniform traffic process so that it does make sense to people. When they see a stop sign that's placed, they know that's where you stop. When they see the sign, the line across there, they know that's where you stop. When you just arbitrarily do these things in a way that doesn't make any sense, people treat it that way as well. There's a lot more that can be said. I just appreciate your consideration on this. It's a sticky issue, but we shouldn't be punishing the people that are in there to enjoy a day in the park with an arbitrary ticket. And I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Huff, for your close. A brief comment, and then I'm going to call for the motion, and the motion would be the do pass in a few minutes. Just real briefly, I think enough members had said to the MRCA, let's go back and review this. In fact, we had a proposal, Senator Huff knows this, that actually would have required that to be done. But this is before us today. So there is some sentiment, and we've heard from enough people. I live in the area. I've traveled all these streets. Some are through streets like Fryman, where commuters, it's a bad mix, right? It's a bad mix of commuters and hikers and growing number of bicyclists, mothers and strollers, the nursery nature walks, and everyone. And it's Los Angeles. It's a challenge, right? We need speed humps may not be the answer. Have you ever talked to your local fire department? They need to get into these wildlands to fight fires. They don't like going over speed humps, let alone ambulances. So that may not be the answer, but there could be smarter placements assigned, or maybe there's another way. We're not saying, I don't want to preclude the MRCA from having all the tools available in the toolkit, to use your expression, but as any program, there may be, this is an opportunity to go back and relook at this. I think Senator Huff raised the issue on behalf of quite a few people who think we can accomplish both: safer public parks, make them primarily for the hikers and the people who enjoy it, find a way to ensure public safety. I think you should be able to keep this tool in the toolkit. In fact, one of the unintended consequences of the bill was when it was amended that applied, I guess, that could apply to all 68 park and recreation districts through the state of California, that would take away that. but I think traffic studies are important. My background is local government, but these aren't municipal streets. These aren't the WISs. These aren't the curb and gutters. These are different and should be treated differently and not the same as in the municipal code. And I'm sensitive to that. The last thing you need are flashing lights and bright lights and then street lights at all things. So let's work on this together and maybe be more thoughtful in the future, and I'll look to make sure that the MRCA or the Conservancy has a discussion on this item. And so I will be recommending a no vote. Senator Allen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm extraordinarily torn about this bill. I love the MRCA. I love its mission. I consider its mission to be very close to my most important priorities as an elected official, which is the preservation of the parkland in the Santa Monica Mountains. It's literally one of my top campaign issues and one of my top priorities as an elected official. I also hate this program, at least the way it's been operated. And, you know, I think that, I think that I'm really having trouble with the placement of the signs. Part of the reason why people are blowing through these stop signs is because they're so unexpected given people's normal expectations of traffic flow. Having a stop sign 26 feet ahead of an intersection. They're not expecting that. You'll notice that people actually go through the stop sign and then stop at the intersection. They just don't conform with our way of driving. I understand that these roads are being used as throughways in some cases, and I think clearly we need to get our heads around that. That's some of these folks, Senator Huff, are not going here to enjoy the park. They're using it as a way to get from the valley down to the city or vice versa. And we clearly have to get our head around the use of one-way roads to jam that process up, because it's not appropriate for people to be speeding through the parks as though it is a city street. So I certainly agree with that concern.
Senator Allen, since the author's closed and the chair is closed and we were calling for...
Well, but we're calling for a vote, and I just wanted to have a chance I thought before was an opportunity for questions.
We had closed.
Does that mean we can't have discussion?
We already had closed the whole item, and a motion was made, and the chair had made a recommendation. But all your comments are germane to the discussion, where I would be glad to meet with you and the MRCA to make this preferable. But
well, let me just rattle off a couple things we need to look, that I'd like to see us look at. Better signage. I know that you have signage. It's not enough. Though I think there's also some serious aesthetic concerns when you're dealing with the mountain parks, and I'm torn about that. Better placement of the stop signs, more reasonable fines, greater flexibility by the hearing officers, who are oftentimes very inflexible, better understanding of the locations and possible lighting. There's lights idea, maybe that's inappropriate. These undulations, I think, look like something we ought to look at, but I really do think that this damages goodwill for the parks. And I guess I'm ultimately very close to what Senator Hertzberg said about trying to figure out a way to support the parks while providing better funding mechanisms and really making sure that this is a safety program and not just a gotcha program.
all right. Thank you for your comments. And then the motion is to pass. Roll call.
Senators Pavley? No. Pavley, no. Stone? Allen? Hertzberg? Quaso? Jackson? Monning? Vidak? Aye. Vidak, aye. Wolk? No. Wolk, no.
The motion is 1 aye, 2 noes. Stone is not here. We could leave it open for Senator Stone when he wants to. We'll do that at the end. So the testimony is completed for the day on this bill, but we'll leave the roll open for Mr. Stone.
Can I make my only final comment? Excuse me, Madam Chair. If each of these issues are not fully resolved by the time this bill comes back to this committee next year, I'm going to vote for it.
Okay. With that, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, if I could ask for reconsideration, should it not pass
Absolutely.
today, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And with that, apologize to the next group, but we wanted to complete that item. It took a little longer than I had thought. So let's have the first panel come forward as soon as we can clear off a few things.
Oh, Dennis will probably. Or I can
Yes.
move over there.
See,
And
Lois,
Dennis can sit here.
Dennis is going to sit here. Sit here.
Yeah, I can move over there.
She's co-chair. We'll start in a couple of minutes. They need to move some of this equipment. Chair Marcus, they're going to remove some of this equipment first before we start, so
Oh, okay.
just so you know.
I only sit there on the roller coaster. Because then you have all these people behind you. That's what I heard. That's fine. I'll just do a quick overview, which for me is hard, and then turn.
I believe we're ready to move forward, and some members are out of the room either presenting bills or will be returning. This couldn't be more timely, having this discussion, not only because we're in the fourth year of record drought, but we've been through the executive orders. I know, Chair Marcus, you've been very engaged on a daily basis. I think I see you quoted all the time. What people may not know is the good work being done not only by the State Water Board, but by the Department of Water Resources. Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Energy Commission is engaged in the discussion of drought, whether it's more drought efficient or water efficient appliances and things like that. So we'll look at the moving parts. We've had executive orders. We've had a letter signed by every Democratic member of the state Senate that had a list of suggestions, some that are over and above what has been currently addressed. I assume some new information may be coming out in the May revise, which is on Thursday of this week, and I see heads shaking affirmatively. If you want to give us a preview of those, of course. You know, Trump the governor? No, no, that would not be right. So that may be addressed. Then we're going to hear in our second panel a discussion on what else might be done. I want thought-provoking concepts and ideas, and we'll be hearing from Ellen Hannock and Lester Snow and Madeline Gleckfield on where do we go from here. And I'm mostly interested in short-term solutions, in addition to some of the longer-term solutions we need to address, and we better start now or we'll never move forward. What happens if our 4 years of record drought will become part of our normal patterns here? Longer, drier winters, more rain than snow, snow that's not going to melt during our spring to provide us water during the summer. What are some regional solutions? What can we as legislators working with the administration collaboratively do to sort of reinvent ourselves? And some of our laws are make things challenging. So with that, this is a joint hearing. I wanted to see if Senator Wilk had a few comments before we introduce our first panel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your comments. I agree with all of them. Just wanted to welcome everyone. Looking forward to the first panel, which is the administration response to the drought, and looking forward to the second piece when we can take a little bit of a longer view. And the one thing I would add to what the chair said is that this may be a crisis, but it's not, we shouldn't waste it, but it is an opportunity to make some structural changes in the approach to water in California that will set us on a better path in terms of the future. So thinking of this as a new normal, which is a phrase I've seen everywhere, as opposed to just this year or getting us through however long this takes. I think it's important to think of this as climate adaptation. That's what we're doing, and we need to view it in that way. So it's really important, I think, to have a plan in place. Short term, everybody's scrambling to do the best we possibly can with the tools that we know will work in the short term. But then we really need to be thinking about midterm and long-term efforts. My one concern about viewing this as a crisis is that the reaction of the public, and that's so important here because we need them to be cooperative with us. We need all to cooperate together. As the governor says, we're all involved in this. Everybody has a role here. And it's important to be fair. Whatever we impose has to be viewed as fair so that we can continue having the voluntary participation of individual citizens. Looking very much forward to the long-term discussion, I'd like to see, Ms. Hannock, if you're going to spend some time, a little bit, I hope, on the issue of pricing. We need to do something about having the price reflect what it takes to get a drop of water to the tap or to the field, and to look at the issue that the Australians dealt with so draconianly, but they had to. We hope we don't get there, but we ought to have some planning about water rights and about how we really distribute the water in California. Very controversial, of course, but somebody should be planning for that, not just PPIC, but internally as well. So with that, looking forward to it.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Wilk. And I also would like to welcome Senator Nielsen, who's joined us as a member of the Budget Sub-2 Committee. And what I thought we'd do, if there's no other comments by members, is I think they've organized themselves. They have 30 minutes collectively to make a presentation. So the administration has, do you have a preference on who goes first here? So I thought we'd listen to all their presentations and then open it up for questions by the members of the committee.
Go first.
All right. Director Mark Cowan, Department of Water Resources. I'd like to remind members this hearing is not only on our websites, but is also being televised. So Director Cowan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair Pavley. Good morning, Senators. And I am Mark Cowan, Director of California's Department of Water Resources. I haven't had the opportunity to sit in the front row right here, so it's pretty exciting. It's much more up close and personal. I'll lead things off for our response and maybe just start with a few words about the nature of the drought that we're facing. Clearly, I think everybody's recognized by now that we are in a fourth consecutive year of drought. I, for one, had high hopes back in December when it was raining hard and significantly that maybe drought had broken, but Mother Nature seems to find new pitches in her arsenal continuously, and we had a historically dry January, of course, which led us right back to drought concerns and drought response. This has been an interesting year from the standpoint of hydrology, generally wetter in the northern part of the state than last year, although perhaps even drier in the southern part of the state in the southern Sierra. But the fact that we started the year in a deeper hole because of low reservoir storage in 2015 versus 2014 has left us in perhaps even more dire straits than we were in 2014. And so while even today we see reservoir storages that are slightly higher for this time of year than they were last year, we also know that we've got essentially zero snowpack to replenish those reservoirs over the summer and fall. So we do expect to end with reservoir storage even more depleted at the end of 2015 than we saw in 2014. So, of course, all of this just leads to the imperative that we plan proactively, not only to deal with the issues that we'll confront this year, but also to prepare for a potentially even drier 2016. So, of course, the administration is engaged in a wide variety of drought responses, and let me speak just as in summary form as I can to the department's portfolio in that wide variety of responses. And I'll speak just briefly to what we're doing on the part of state water project operations, our role in emergency response for communities that are facing water shortages, primarily working with Cal OES, our efforts on data collection and analysis, including, importantly, analysis of impacts to groundwater over this drought, our financial assistance programs, and our public outreach programs. And that's a lot, and I could probably go on for the whole half hour, so I'll try to do it as briefly as I can. Project operations, of course, are very complicated by drought. We always have this balance of trying to provide for water supply, water quality, and protection of fish and wildlife species. This fourth year of drought, of course, makes that job as tough as it has ever been. I do believe that we are ahead of the curve this year based upon the experience that we gained in 2014. So we did put our drought contingency plans together months earlier in 2015 relative to last year and have some expectation of what we're going to need to do in order to strike that balance as that experience grows. We have, of course, approached the State Board for a number of different temporary agency change proposals for modifications of our water rights under the State Water Board's authority. This year, we've had 3 orders granted on February 3rd, March 3rd, and April 6th, and we expect to file a 4th petition on Friday seeking to order for changes in our requirements for our water rights for June 30th and July 1st. That request will seek to modify Delta outflow requirements, Rio Vista flow requirements, and Western Delta salinity compliance. I will note that the way we view these changes, they're really in response to setting the appropriate points of balance in a severe drought, since the water rights and the water requirements were really based upon general water year classifications. We're beyond what we would classify as a critically dry water year right now, and thus the need to consider modifications to those dry year requirements. Of course, this year, importantly, we're considering, or past considering, we've long considered, but now we're in the process of installing one emergency drought salinity barrier on West Falls River down near Frank's Track. The point of this barrier, of course, is to prevent bay salts from mixing with interior delta water. And normally, the state project and the federal project have a number of different tools to provide for prevention of salinity intrusion, including, of course, just ramping down project exports in the event that we need more delta outflow and releasing more water from upstream reservoirs. Since delta exports are already so low and that we're also trying to preserve upstream storage to the extent we can, there's not much room to maneuver those two dials on the system. Thus, we're looking to this barrier as basically an insurance policy to help with unexpected circumstances this summer should we have a high-pressure system or high winds that drive salinity towards the interior delta, or unusually hot period that increases depletions upstream and limits delta inflow. So again, this is we consider an expensive, unfortunate that we have to pursue this measure, but we think it's essential to give us assurance that we can protect water supplies for so many Californians. The costs, of course, we're estimating the cost right now for installing the barrier, for mitigation, and for initial monitoring at about $18 million, which will be paid for through Prop 50 funds. The cost to deconstruct the barrier, which of course is part of the permit terms for installing it, we will need to remove the barrier by November to provide for migrating fish. The costs of actually collecting the rock out of the channel are more expensive than putting it in. So we're estimating those costs at $22 million, and in fact, we'll begin to advertise for the construction bids to deconstruct the barrier about a week after we get it installed in June. So this is quite a program of construction and deconstruction, if you will. Largest impacts, of course, will be on the boating community. We've been working with Recreational Boaters of California and the California Delta Chambers and Visitors Bureau to advise folks of this closure, and of course working with local landowners on any direct impacts that they might incur, and you'd be happy to talk more about that later on. As far as emergency response goes, of course, our role is just in assistance to Cal OES. In the past year, of course, we've worked with any number of communities on different projects to provide for emergency situations, including new intakes to reservoirs or other issues regarding access to water for small communities. This year, there is an emphasis on providing water for communities and individuals that have dry wells. We have an estimated number of wells reaching about 1,900 dry wells as reported to OES as of now. 1,900 dry wells. Most of those, 1,074 in Tulare County, and a big concentration of those in the East Porterville area, which has received a lot of attention. So our job has been to, on one hand, work on emergency response. We're installing tanks, trying to provide water to meet the short-term needs of those communities, and at the same time working on longer-term solutions that would include new wells, interconnections between different communities, and more resilience for drought in the future. Moving to data collection, of course, we at DWR have a broad range of responsibilities for collecting and analyzing data and planning for California's water resources. This year, we've had special responsibilities regarding groundwater data collection and analysis, and have completed 2 groundwater reports in April and November of 2014 so that we can better understand and track changes to our groundwater. Preliminary spring data from 2015 is showing, to no one's surprise, that groundwater levels will continue to fall. We're seeing decreases of more than 2 feet in over 40% of the measured wells, and severe decreases of more than 2 feet in over 40% of the measured wells. So that's just one point in the curve, but gives you a sense of the significance. This is the, correct, the spring measurements before we begin the pumping season, right?
Geographically concentrated in any way? Or?
Absolutely. They're concentrated primarily in the southern San Joaquin Valley and the Tulare Lake hydrologic region, where we're seeing greater than 25 feet decreases in water levels in some of those wells. So that's a real hot spot. Of course, groundwater overpumping leads to land subsidence. We've been working with NASA JPL on use of satellite-based data to monitor that. And we'll have a report available in June which points out the latest measurements and analysis, and I don't think it will surprise anybody that we're seeing new levels of subsidence that we have not yet seen before in California's history. On the financial assistance front, I know this has received a lot of attention from your committees. We are working hard to get money out the door to provide for drought response. We agree that state agencies need to be as nimble as possible and take all responsible actions to expedite grants. But of course, our ability to move funds is also limited by local agencies and their ability to develop proposals and to engage with us to support their proposals. So we need to assure that we have the ability and time to work with them to get their best proposals so that we can assure that state funds are spent wisely. And it also needs to be equitable. Some agencies have bigger challenges and it takes them longer to get their proposals together. So if we move all of the funding too quickly, then we see some of those that have the biggest challenges left behind. So we want to keep an eye on that as well. Nonetheless, we are continuing to look for ways to further streamline our very complex, unfortunately, very complex processes, including making use of existing or amended guidelines to the extent we can, ceasing the past practice of posting draft guidelines and other documents and seeking public comment before we move forward, and trying to do more by requesting concept proposals instead of full blown-out proposals from local agencies so that we can get a better sense of where the funding opportunities are going to be and move forward most efficiently. So I'm sure we'll want to talk more about funding opportunities in this discussion. Finally, public outreach, of course, is very significant. Get into some of your comments, Senator Wolk and Pavley. We are also concerned about drought fatigue, if you will, and to some extent the public is maybe done with this, and we need to fight that notion that this is a short-term issue. And to that end, DWR has been partnering with the Association of California Water Agencies since 2009 on our Save Our Water campaign. I hope you all have had a chance to look at it. I think it's we're doing our best to make it useful to individual Californians. I think there's a lot of great information on it. We're beginning a new campaign this year that will have the theme of Keep Saving California. So be looking for that, and we'll continue to look for ways to get the message out that it's not only short-term response, but the need for lasting change that's important. So let me just close with that, essentially, that we are very appreciative that this drought is going to change California. I think our job, one, is to limit the adverse effects of drought while we push for the fundamental changes that will make California more resilient on the outside of this drought and better able to handle our challenges in the future. And I'll stop there. Thank you.